Arratsaldeon guztioi, ongi etorri, gaurko azken prentsaurrekora. Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to all of you. This is the last press conference this afternoon in the San Sebastian Film Festival. The press conference corresponds to the Spanish, French and Uruguayan film, The Apostate, which has just been projected within the official section of this festival. To present the film today, we've got the director, Federico Beiroj, the leading actor Álvaro Gaya, who in turn is the co-author of the original idea and also co-screenplay writer, actresses Marta Larralda and Barbara Leni, and producers Fernando Franco and Guadalupe Balaguer. We also have Gonzalo Delgado, who is the co-script writer and art director and production designer, better said. Let's start the press conference. First question, please, in the first row. Hi, I would like you to explain to me something that drew my attention at the end when Barbara Denny and the Alvaro kiss, and there's a moment, it seems that it's going to get close, but there's a cut there in the scene, and the next moment is a bit closer. Why do you take that jump and there's a cut in the scene? What is that all about? I don't know, could you explain that to me? And I would also, could you talk about the references, which are quite obvious, like Woody Allen or Nanni Moretti, at least I see those references in the film. And Eyes Wide Shut in the nudist scenes when they're in the garden and so on and so forth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. Aban, that little cut in that sequence, apart from the producer, Fernando Franco, he edited the film, and it's a cut that we discussed quite a lot, and we filmed them in both takes, and I had the need to get closer because I felt that getting closer to them with the camera gives a sort of the artifice that we wanted to provide, that it's a moment and where the tension and the energy sort of fades away, and getting close to them, getting it closer up, which was very deep to see them a bit longer while they kissed. That above all, that first of all, and secondly, it seemed it was very important to give them a kiss, the transcendence of a kiss, and not leave it as a long, an open shot. I liked it, but it was just a decision purely aesthetic and done in the editing room. I know perhaps it's a cut that it may surprise people a bit more or less, because it's a scene where the light's a bit lower, where you see the background a bit more, but that's it. It was just a decision like many other decisions that you take from an aesthetic standpoint. And as we got to the references, there are innumerable, many conscious and some unconscious. I enjoyed, and the crew of the creative process of many films that we've seen during and before. Nanni Moretti, obviously, is someone who's close to us. And there are some films that perhaps, not to bore you and to not talk about too many things, because there can be many I can talk about, there are some films that have been very important and quite present in the process. And one of them is the Prima Angelica by Saura, and it's not because of López Vázquez in that film. He has a relationship with his cousin, and this is a film that it manages the past and the fantasy and it links. It's a film which changes things. There are three cinematographic times or moments in the film, and that allowed me to try something that we tried to do in The Apostate, and that is to say, go from the fantasy to reality and the past at the same time, and all of that, to mix it together, and working for the ending that had already been written down. That is to say, we have to make it to that degree of so to speak, of delirium or that degree of fantasy to believe that past. You had to go through those different layers of the character. That film, for example, has been quite present in my mind. And then Marco Ferreri's film, not those filmed in Spain, but in the audience. It's a comedy. It's a character who tries to see the Pope, and he has a lot of misadventures. And it seems that these are two films that were very close to references that I bore in mind. And then I like watching films, and many of the people in the cast and the crew, we like films a lot, and so therefore they always asked me up until now about Buñuel and whether they deal with religious issues and sexual issues, and the film talks about betrayal and inheritance, something that could be close to what he used to do. And Buñuel, I like him very much, so therefore he was always present as well. And finally, I would like to Benito Pérez Galdós, the author who was linked to close to Buñuel, and during the script writing we were reading with Álvaro Gaya a novel which is that the character reads in the film, which is El Audaz, the story of a radical of the past upon a character who's irreverent and very nice and a nice guy, but he gets his own at the end, and with all the picturesque and characteristic aspects that a character of Gonzalo Tamayo. That is to say, there have been many things, films and books and even music as well, okay, that we've used as references. Hi. I would like to ask the director and the script writers or the screenplay writers, they once got an idea about the film, because I'm not too sure whether the idea has got to do with your real life. That's if you you think about the church like that, or whether you've had to do with what's going on in the story, or if it comes from somewhere absolutely different or from another place. I'll start. The story, the inspiration of the film stems from the fact I'm a very good friend of Álvaro Gaya, and I lived in Madrid, and we met working in the Filmoteca, or the film library, and in Madrid. And then I went to Montevideo, because I'm from Montevideo and I live there now. And over that time that I went back, as we were friends, we used to send ourselves emails, not letters like in the film. And then one day we used to talk to each other and tell us things, and he said that he was starting to try to apostatize, and all of a sudden I said, well, what are you doing? What's all this about? I didn't even know what the concept of apostasy before that, so therefore it was quite curious. And then all of a sudden that idea stuck in my mind, and I couldn't let go of it. And what interested me was of those 2 or 3 episodes that he told me of, when he went to seek his baptismal certificate and to get together in the bishopric, and he wanted to have the photo of the moment that he wanted to revoke it. That's a vision upon that process that he had, which was very interesting. And that's it. And I liked it because it says, for me, as a scriptwriter and a director, to make a film upon a character who wants to leave behind an enormous amount of things that he's representing at 100%. He wants to leave them behind him, and at the same time it's impossible. It's a fantasy and utopian almost. I thought this was a beautiful premise to make a fiction film with touches of fantasy and so on. These were the 2 or 3 episodes that Alvaro tried to do, that he would tell us, and that's how we wrote the script, and that's how the film is far away from a manual or whatever. For what was needed for the film that we wanted to tell, that's where we went vis-a-vis the script. I don't have much to add. Now, you told it very well. No, the question that perhaps whether you managed to achieve it in real life, no, obviously not. I didn't achieve it. I don't think anybody achieves it in real life. It's what happened in the film, the truth is. A judge prevented the church to write upon those books, but the process was exactly the same as Federico has just explained. Next question, please. Hi, good afternoon. I would like to ask Gonzalo Tamayo, the character of Gonzalo Tamayo, there is a message in this film. Is there a critique of that dogmatism of the church, or is it something which is completely imaginary? Or, as we know, there are a lot of problems in other aspects of the Catholic Church. Thank you. Well, it is a critique that can be extended not only to the Catholic Church, but to all sorts of strict and rigid structures or legal mechanisms and structures that are too rigid to be able to penetrate into them. The Catholic Church is one of them, but also the state and also family and other institutions, shall we say, not only the church. And is it a critique? Yes. The truth is it criticizes a poetic slant on it. It's more about highlighting those different elements that make up circumstances within a society, the way we organize ourselves, and how we relate ourselves to institutions and the power that are in power. For example, it's not a critique of a philosophical nature. It's just simply an ironic portrait, and that's what the film goes about.
Siguiente pregunta.
Next question, please. Hi again. I want to ask the actresses, what was it like to work in this vis-a-vis other works that you've done, because you're quite popular. We've seen in many other films before. How did you see it in comparison to what else, other roles that you've played in the past? For me, it was quite a pleasure. Especially, I am very happy and very proud of participating in this film that I like very much, with a director that I'd already admired before I worked with him, and that as the shooting of the film was very creative, a lot of fun, and unexpected things occurred as well. And it was always been especially great to work with Alvaro, who's not an actor, who was for the first time played a role like this, and it's something that's very difficult, and who's an extremely sensitive person. So being beside him and accompanying him all the while, and to portray these characters that help to tell him and their instruments to understand him better, I like that very much always. So the truth has been a very beautiful experience. The same to me. I'm very happy to participate in a project of this nature. The script, I was excited about it the first time I read it, and then when I met Federico and Alvaro, and when we had a very lively chat in a bar, and I fell in love with both of them, and I said, yes, I want to form part of this project. I like this kind of film very much, made with not too many means, but with very intelligent scripts and acidic and very stories like this that are interested. And being a spectator in the audience, I like very much. And Barbara, we're working with Alvaro. I remember that Alvaro was very nervous, quite insecure, unsure of himself, and it was marvelous because Alvaro, all of a sudden, the way you looked at us was very. I remember the last scene that we shot, I was deeply moved because he looked at me in a way that an actor doesn't look at you like that. There was a lot of truth in that look, and it went straight through it pierced my soul, if I remember correctly, and I'm very thankful. You did a very good job, by the way. A good actor, a great actor, apart from a scriptwriter. Next question, please. While you think about the question, I would like to say something that has to do with the music in the film. And the beginning of the film has music, whether you can hear the piano. The piano is Federico García Lorca, and the Centenica. It was a great song that we wanted to introduce the film. And the other parts, which are much more fantasy scenes, these are Prokofiev for the film of Sandarnowski and Morente that you hear at the end, and Lisao, which is a Basque group, and the rock group, yes, is Disabo. Bisabo is the name of the group. And then the part which was music, which is more classic and orchestrated, is taken from, it's the Nodo, not the Nodo or the newsreels that you put before the films, but half an hour newsreels which talks about films or customs. It's almost anthropological, but not so much propaganda, back to the newsreel days of the dictatorship. But we worked on the music in the Filmothèque with Alvaro. We had the possibility of doing this, and it was a great opportunity, obviously, of getting a lot of the material available to us. And so forth, we look, it's almost anthropological as we slant on things. So therefore, we thought it was great to use that kind of music that normally is never listened to. And that's where part of the newsreels at the Nodo, like Bernaola, great composers, is the best known, and we thought it was very good to put that music in the film. That's all. Just because as there are not too many questions, we have one question over here. I'd like to ask the director whether, does it make any sense, the fact that there's practically no modern technology in the film at all? That throughout the entire film, everyone's worried about books and about real records and LPs, whether that's like an apostasy against the modern God. No, not especially. The truth is, it's a choice, an aesthetic choice or poetic choice, perhaps. We use mobile phones, and we've got WhatsApp on the day-to-day. We do everything with our computer. We're not against anything. We take all the good that is provided to us. But when we made the film, we thought it was interesting for a story to base it on in this time, at the present, without mobiles and without computers, albeit in a sequence when he starts to do his apostatize. The nuns have got these big Windows screens, computer screens, and it seemed interesting to address the film like a screen time. We didn't think about a period time, specific period in time, because if we're working in the fantasy that the character goes through, and we thought about with Gonzalo and the director of photography, it has to transmit more of an inquisition without having too clear what's going on, because we see paintings and recreations of films that we've seen. It was our fantasy, or what that character could fantasize about, like that persecution where he's pursued, or at the beginning of the film when the man has got a whip, so therefore it's using his whip. We thought that was very interesting to form part of the film, and if we'd address the film as being super modern with a mobile, we have to decide what model of mobile, because that depends upon what year. So therefore perhaps it would go against us. So therefore we chose to place the camera quite well. We knew that we wanted to film the Madrid of Los Austrias, and that suburb of Madrid, which is an old Madrid, so that you could see the story, so you could see the tradition in that stone that we filmed in those streets. And for it to have that importance, so therefore we thought that was interesting, that to address it from that perspective, the same as the character that writes letters. That's just something that nowadays is perhaps is a bit out of use, but to address it as something, a man, when one gets into the film, let's hope the audience can appreciate this way, they stop thinking, oh, he's writing a letter. You see it once and you think, well, what period of time it is, but all of a sudden you go, what is he telling us in the letters? What do we want to achieve with the film? It's as if it's worked on as if the time and that period is directly linked to the emotion that could be caused by certain things. It's atemporal, like it's a kind of recreation thought of in guiding, to try to guide the audience's emotion. Hi, a question for Fernando Franco. what made you get involved in this to produce the film? And after the success of La Herida a couple of years back, what's it like coming back here again? Well, coming back here, it's great, undoubtedly, because we were reinforced with La Herida thanks to the San Sebastian Film Festival. We love this festival, and so therefore, when we had the opportunity of coming with the Apóstata here, we were very happy. And what made me get involved in production was a mixture of friendship, admiration towards Federico's work, that I knew his work before meeting him, and I loved it, and also a bit of inconsciousness. I wasn't very aware of what was going on. I've got my own production company, which is a co-producer of La Herida, but with a minority percentage of participation, and so therefore Federico was setting up the co-production. He wanted part of the Spanish, he wanted Spanish production, and for me it was a very good opportunity to work with someone who I admired and to learn throughout the process. And to the lack of knowledge, Guadalupe came to participate. My lack of knowledge on the production side, because I'm a bit of a chaos. At an organization and production level, I can't do too much. It was more as a backup and I also edit the film and to set up the crew as well and all of that sort of stuff. Guadalupe really was there piloting the production, driving the production in the more strict sense of the word.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Any further question?
Por favor.
Yes, please. What surprised me is with all of the reality fiction and all of those elements that you talked about, this scene, the nudist scene, the next scene after that is him getting up, waking up in the car as if out of a dream. If we hadn't have seen that awakening, could we have taken that, made it a bit more ambiguous? Did it happen? Did it not happen? But I understand that as you see that, it's quite clear it's relegated to his imagination. So therefore this surprised me, because the rest of the film you may maybe question because it's a bit more ambiguous. Yes. Thank you for the question. It's great, because everything that has to do with regression or the past or with fantasy and the present of the character, we always try to make it being according to how the story progresses. That scene, we knew that it had to be a scene which was oniric or a fantasy, where it had to take us to a certain place. And for us, we scriptwriters in the story, it was the visual presentation of the mother. And that's what we thought was very powerful there, because the mother up until that moment had not been seen until the question that the bishop asks the character of Tamayo, says, your mother, have you already told your mother? Right? So there was something that was in the background, so to speak, and so therefore we thought it was a good idea to present the mother at that moment. The truth is, the mother had been seen beforehand, but the presentation within the fantasy, that is to say, what provokes him, what the mother causes him, that is, provokes in him, that is to say. And the confusion of what I'm telling you, you see the previous scene when he goes home with the envelopes and so on and so forth, that's later on. And to present the mother in his fantasy, because he hasn't told her what he's up to yet, and we thought that was very interesting. It's like that he goes down to the town, and it was like an activity that he carries out in the present, and it's quite regressive in the back seat of the car. And it's in his memory. It's as if he was telling a friend when he was smaller, but the character goes towards the town. He sees his cousin, which has a connotation of that nature. That place, it was the presentation within the fantasy, and to create that ghost of the mother, so to speak, and the confusion and the question on whether it's real or not. Yes, of course, those cuts that we make are a bit abrupt, which means that one can ask oneself, and for me, as we see how they advance, how it progresses, and it generates a lot of mystery, and we're interested in telling the story in this way. I thought it was a good idea, that it was as a good intention of cutting it off there, which was quite abruptly, to when he wakes up in the back seat of the car. And I like the way he wakes up and the way he looks, because he starts to talk when he's off, when he was a child, off camera, because he remembers his mother, and he looks back and looks at him in the back of the car, and the face I see of him, it's as if I see him as if he's a little child. The film plays with the past as well, and it has sometimes like flashbacks, almost poetical and like fantasies. He fantasizes, especially in the town when he hears his cousin sing. Only he listens to her and hears her as a little girl. Just like Barbara said, it's a character which he's very sensitive, apart from being very sensitive, Alvaro himself, but the character is very sensitive as well. He lets himself go and is taken away with it. Any further questions?
Bueno, pues si no hay más.
If there are no further questions, thank you very much to all of you.